The moon was gone. Not hidden behind clouds, nor masked by mist. The moon had vanished from the night sky, leaving only a gaping, black void where its silver glow should have been. The villagers of Namrup stood by the Kamlang River, their faces turned upward in shock. A fear unlike any they had known crept into their hearts. Whispers broke through the crowd. The gods are angry. It's a curse. But the village elder shook his head, his voice breaking the murmurs. No. The river goddess has taken it. His words fell like stones into the heavy air. A cold hush settled over the people, as if the very river at their backs had heard and stilled itself. No one spoke her name aloud. The river goddess was ancient, powerful, and capricious. Legends passed down from elders spoke of her beauty and wrath, of how she controlled the life of the river, demanding respect and sacrifice. The moon, they believed, had been a gift from the gods to balance the goddess's moods, its light a protection against her dark temper. Without it, who knew what would come? Rahul stood apart from the crowd, his eyes staring blankly at the empty sky. The weight of guilt bore down on him, squeezing his chest so tightly it hurt to breathe. He knew why the moon was gone. He knew, because he had stolen it. The Kamlang River shimmered under the glow of the full moon, its surface as still as glass. Rahul, a young man from Namrup, stood at the river's edge, staring at the reflection of the moon on the water. His mind was far from peaceful. Rahul had always wanted more. He wasn't content with the life of a farmer, like his father and grandfather before him. Namrup was too small for his ambition, the life it offered too plain. His hands itched for something greater: power, wealth, the kind of life that would make him stand apart from the rest. As he stared into the river, lost in thought, he didn't notice the soft ripples that began to disturb the water's surface. From the depths, a figure emerged, a woman, though not entirely human. Her skin shimmered like the moon itself, her long hair flowed like water, and her eyes held the deep, ancient wisdom of the river. She stepped onto the shore, her feet barely touching the ground. Rahul blinked, unsure if what he was seeing was real or a trick of the light. "You look troubled," the woman said, her voice soft but powerful, as though the river itself spoke through her. Rahul's breath caught in his throat. She was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. I want more," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "More than this village can give me." The woman smiled, her lips curling into a knowing grin. "I can give you everything you desire," she said, stepping closer to him. "Wealth, power, all of it can be yours. But you must do something for me in return." Rahul swallowed hard, captivated by her beauty and the promise in her voice. "What do you need from me?" "I need the moon," she replied, her eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Rahul blinked. "The moon?" The woman's smile widened. "Yes. The moon. Bring it to me, and everything you want will be yours." Her words settled over Rahul like a spell, numbing his sense of reason. How could he steal the moon? And yet, the thought of riches, of leaving his simple life behind, consumed him. The woman's voice wrapped around him like the river's current, pulling him in. "I'll do it," he said, his voice trembling with the weight of the decision. The woman's smile deepened, and she placed her hand on his chest, her touch cold and light as mist. "Good. Return to me on the night of the full moon." The elder had warned him. Rahul remembered that now, standing by the river, staring at the moonless sky. But then, he had been too blinded by greed, too entranced by her beauty to listen. "The goddess of the Kamlang River is not to be trusted," the elder had said, his voice heavy with age and wisdom. "She is as dangerous as the water itself. Beautiful on the surface, but deadly beneath." Rahul had scoffed then, dismissing the elder's warnings as the ramblings of an old man. He hadn't believed the legends of the river goddess, of the underwater kingdom where she ruled with a fickle hand. But now, it was too late. The air was thick with tension as Rahul approached the riverbank. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale glow over the village. Anaya was waiting for him, her feet barely touching the ground, her eyes glowing with anticipation. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice like the murmur of the river. Rahul nodded, though his heart pounded in his chest. He wasn't sure how this was supposed to work, but Anaya had assured him it was possible. She had told him that the moon was not just a celestial body, it was a source of immense power, one her goddess needed. Anaya began to chant, her words soft and melodic, flowing like the river. The air around them shimmered, and Rahul felt a strange energy fill the space, pulling at his skin, making the hairs on his arms stand on end. He looked up at the moon, and to his astonishment, it began to lower, as though responding to her call. His hands shook as he reached up, and when his fingers touched the surface of the moon, it was cold, impossibly heavy. But he didn't stop. The power flowing through him gave him strength, and slowly, the moon lowered into his grasp. He had done it. He had stolen the moon. Anaya's eyes gleamed as she stepped forward, her hands gently taking the moon from him. She cradled it like a jewel, her lips curling in satisfaction. "You've done well," she whispered, her voice thick with pleasure. "The goddess will be pleased." "And my reward?" Rahul asked, his voice trembling with excitement and fear. Anaya's smile faded slightly, and her eyes grew distant. "Your reward will come," she said, her voice cool. "In time." Without another word, she turned and disappeared into the river, the moon in her arms, leaving Rahul standing alone on the shore. Rahul stared at the water, his heart pounding in his chest. Anaya had not returned. The moon had vanished from the sky, and the village had begun to suffer. The crops were failing, the animals growing sick. The elders spoke of the god's anger, but Rahul knew the truth. He had been a fool. He had been used. In the days that followed, Rahul waited by the riverbank, hoping Anaya would return with the wealth she had promised. But as the days turned into weeks, and the nights grew darker, he realized that she had no intention of keeping her promise. Desperation gnawed at him, and guilt clawed at his insides. He had stolen the moon, but for what? He had betrayed his people, doomed his village, and for what? An empty sky and a hollow promise. One night, as Rahul stood by the river, staring into its depths, he heard a soft voice behind him. "You look troubled." He turned, his heart leaping into his throat, expecting to see Anaya. But it was not her. Another woman stood at the edge of the river, her skin as pale as the moonlight, her eyes as deep as the river itself. Her presence was familiar, yet different. There was no warmth in her gaze, only cold calculation. "You seek the one who took the moon," she said, her voice a soft hiss. "But she is no longer in control." Rahul's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "She is gone," the woman replied, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "And now, the moon belongs to me." Rahul's heart raced. "Who are you?" "I am Vani," she said, stepping forward, her presence growing darker, more menacing. "And Anaya has been dethroned," she said. Vani continued. Anaya had swum back toward Kamlang with the moon in her arms, her heart racing excitedly. The contest was as good as won. No mermaid in the kingdom could match what she had brought the moon itself. But Vani had been watching. She had always been jealous of Anaya's beauty, her charm, and now, her cunning. Vani knew she couldn't defeat Anaya by mere strength or wit alone. She needed the ultimate prize. As Anaya swam through the dark waters, her path lit by the moon's glow, Vani made her move. Silent and swift, she lunged at Anaya, tearing the moon from her grasp. Anaya's scream echoed through the kingdom, but it was too late. Vani vanished into the depths, the moon now hers. In the end, no one truly won. Anaya lost her power, her beauty fading as swiftly as her ambitions. Vani, though she had the moon, gained nothing but a hollow victory. And the river, once a place of mystery and beauty, grew darker, its depths colder. As for Rahul, his name became a cautionary tale, told throughout the village, warning the young ones never to be in haste and be careful of being a victim of desperation. Please subscribe to Naga Folktale Spot for more amazing stories like this one. See you soon.